I, 17F, need some help sorting out a family situation that's been causing a lot of stress lately. This whole thing started 8 years ago when I was 9, and now it's coming back to haunt me. For background, my family has always been close to my Uncle Mark's, 45M family. He's my dad's younger brother and is married to Aunt Sarah, 43F. They have 2 kids, my cousins Ben, 16M, and Emma, 14F. My Aunt Sarah's parents, Tom, 68M, and Linda, 65F, are extremely involved in their lives and always join our family gatherings. 8 years ago, during Christmas break, our families decided to take a road trip to visit Uncle Mark's new house in Colorado. The group included my parents, Dad 42M, Mom 40F, my sister Amy, 15F, Grandma Rose, 65F, Uncle Mark, Aunt Sarah, Ben, Emma, Tom, and Linda. Since there were so many of us, we split into 2 cars. My parents and Grandma Rose took one car with all the luggage, while I ended up in Uncle Mark's minivan with him, Aunt Sarah, my cousins, Aunt's parents, and my sister. The trip started out fine. Ben and Emma had brought their favorite DVDs to watch during the drive, and we were all excited about the 6-hour journey. I was sitting in the back row with Ben while Emma and Amy were in the middle row. Tom and Linda were in the front row behind Uncle Mark and Aunt Sarah who were driving. After about 3 hours, we stopped at a diner for dinner. The altitude was starting to affect me. I've always been sensitive to elevation changes, something I inherited from my mom's side. I was feeling nauseous from sitting in the back row where the road movement was more noticeable. After dinner, I politely asked Ben if we could switch seats so I could sit in the middle row where the motion sickness wouldn't be as bad. That's when things started going downhill. Ben threw a massive tantrum about wanting to see the DVD player better from the middle row. He started crying and making a scene in the parking lot. I tried explaining that I was feeling sick, but he wouldn't listen. Finally, after Aunt Sarah's intervention, he grudgingly moved to the back row. I was sitting between my sister and Emma in the middle row, finally feeling better, when I heard Tom and Linda talking in low voices. I had closed my eyes but wasn't asleep yet. What I heard still haunts me to this day. They called me a spoiled brat and said I was deliberately torturing their precious grandson. Linda said things like, "Look at how that little witch made our Ben cry and she's just like her mother, always having to get her way." Tom joined in, saying my parents had done a terrible job raising me and that I was the most difficult child he'd ever met. What hurt even more was hearing my Aunt Sarah agree with them. She said I always created problems and never thought about others. My Uncle Mark tried changing the subject several times, but they kept going. The situation got worse when we stopped at a gas station. The elevation was really getting to me by then, and my mom noticed I wasn't feeling well. She brought me some cotton for my ears, which usually helps with the altitude pressure. She carefully made her way through the crowded van to give it to me, and that set Tom and Linda off again. They accused my mom of deliberately bumping into Ben while giving me the cotton, which never happened. They started saying awful things like she only cares about her precious daughter and look at her, so fat she can barely move through the van without crushing everyone. My mom isn't even obese, she gained some weight after having us but she's just slightly overweight. Their comments were cruel and completely unnecessary. By the time we reached the Airbnb my dad had booked, I was emotionally exhausted. The place was actually really nice, a renovated barn house with modern amenities and plenty of space for everyone. But as soon as my uncle stepped out to check us in, Aunt Sarah started complaining loudly. She said things like, "This is where animals live and I can't believe we're staying in a barn." I wanted so badly to tell her she could have booked the accommodation herself if she was so unhappy, but I stayed quiet. That night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. My dad found me crying in my bed and asked what was wrong. I told him everything, the cruel comments about me, the horrible things they said about Mom, and how Aunt Sarah had encouraged it all. He was furious and had a private conversation with my uncle and aunt. I don't know what was said, but the rest of the trip was awkwardly quiet. Now, 8 years later, everyone's planning another family Christmas trip. My Aunt Sarah has mellowed down over the years and is generally nicer to us now, but Tom and Linda haven't changed one bit. They still make snide comments about my mom's weight at family gatherings and give me cold looks whenever we meet. When my dad told me about the trip plans, I immediately refused to go. I can't spend another Christmas listening to their cruel comments and watching them treat my mom badly. My parents say they understand my feelings but want me to try for the sake of family harmony. My sister Amy thinks I'm being dramatic and should let go of what happened when I was 9. My cousins Ben and Emma have been texting me nonstop, saying I'm ruining the family Christmas and should give their grandparents another chance. The extended family is split on this. Some relatives think I'm right to protect my mental health and stand up for myself. Others are calling me selfish and saying I'm tearing the family apart over something that happened years ago. The worst part is that Tom and Linda have never apologized for their behavior. They act like they did nothing wrong and I'm just an oversensitive teenager holding on to childhood grudges. My mom tries to stay neutral because she doesn't want to cause more family drama, but I can see how much their comments still hurt her. She's lost confidence over the years because of their constant remarks about her weight. Dad supports whatever decision I make but hopes we can find a way to make peace. Ida for refusing to go and potentially ruining everyone's Christmas plans? Should I just suck it up for the sake of family harmony, or am I right to stand my ground? Update 1: I finally gave in and agreed to go on the trip after my dad spent days trying to convince me. He promised things would be different this time and said he'd step in immediately if Tom and Linda started their usual behavior. To avoid any seething drama like last time, we decided to take 3 cars instead of 2. My parents, sister and I were in one car, Uncle Mark's family in another, and Tom and Linda followed in their own car. The drive to the mountain resort was peaceful enough since I didn't have to share space with them. We had booked rooms at a fancy hotel this time instead of an Airbnb, probably to avoid complaints about accommodation. As soon as we arrived, Linda started making comments about how the hotel wasn't as luxurious as the ones they usually stay at. I caught my dad rolling his eyes but he kept quiet. The first day was tense but manageable. Tom and Linda kept making passive-aggressive comments during check-in about how young people these days need everything to be perfect and how some people can't adjust to anything. I knew these comments were aimed at me, but I followed my dad's advice and ignored them. During dinner at the hotel restaurant, things got worse. Linda started criticizing everything, from the menu choices to the pricing. She complained that the restaurant my dad had picked for our first family dinner was too basic for her refined taste. She made a show of picking at her food and loudly wondered if they could order from somewhere else. That's when I finally snapped. After 8 years of bottling up my feelings and watching them treat my family with contempt, I had enough. I put down my fork and told Linda that if she was so unhappy with our family's choices, maybe she should stay home next time instead of ruining everyone's dinner with her complaints. The entire table went silent. Tom's face turned red with anger and he started yelling about how disrespectful I was to my elders. But for once, I didn't back down. I told them exactly how I felt, about how I heard them insulting me 8 years ago in the car, about their cruel comments about my mom, and how they'd never once apologized for any of it. My Aunt Sarah tried defending her parents, saying I was being too sensitive and bringing up ancient history. But surprisingly, Uncle Mark spoke up. He said he remembered that car ride too, and that their behavior had been unacceptable then and was unacceptable now. It was the first time anyone besides my parents had publicly acknowledged what had happened. The dinner ended abruptly after that. Everyone retreated to their rooms, and I could hear Tom and Linda complaining loudly in the hallway about how I'd ruined the entire vacation. My cousins Ben and Emma wouldn't even look at me. The next morning, everything changed. Linda was walking down the marble staircase in the hotel lobby, texting on her phone instead of watching where she was going. She missed a step and fell, tumbling down half a flight of stairs. When the hotel staff rushed to help her, they discovered she had broken her leg. I was nowhere near her when it happened. I was in my room with my sister and cousins, trying to smooth things over after the dinner drama. But somehow Linda is now telling everyone that I pushed her down the stairs in revenge for the previous night's argument. The situation has split our family even further. Despite having no witnesses and the fall happening in a completely different part of the hotel, half the family seems to believe her story. My Aunt Sarah is back to her old self, calling me a vengeful person who held on to a childish grudge and hurt her mother. She's been posting vague messages on social media about karma and true colors showing. Only my immediate family and Uncle Mark know the truth. Tom and Linda are using this accident to turn everyone against me, calling relatives and telling them I'm dangerous and unstable. They are conveniently leaving out the parts about their own behavior and what led to our argument at dinner. My cousins, who were literally with me in my room when the accident happened, are now acting weird and distant. They won't directly accuse me of pushing their grandmother, but they're not defending me either. I overheard Ben telling Emma that maybe I really did do it and they just didn't notice me leaving the room. Dad is furious. He's been trying to talk to the hotel about getting security footage of the accident, but apparently there's some issue with accessing it. Mom is stressed and blaming herself, saying none of this would have happened if she had just stayed home with me like I wanted. The whole trip has turned into a nightmare, and we still have 3 days left. Tom and Linda are demanding we pay for Linda's medical bills, claiming it's the least we could do after what I did to her. Uncle Mark is the only one besides my parents who's standing up for me, which is causing problems between him and Aunt Sarah. I don't know what to do anymore. I wish I had stuck to my original decision and stayed home. Now I'm being painted as some kind of violent person who pushed an elderly woman down the stairs, all because I finally stood up to their bullying after 8 years. Was I wrong to speak up at dinner? Should I have just kept quiet and let them continue their behavior like everyone else does? Update 2: The situation has gotten much worse since we returned from the trip. Tom and Linda have been on a mission to destroy my reputation. They've been calling every relative in our extended family, telling them I'm a violent person who pushed Linda down the stairs because of an old grudge. I heard from my cousin Rachel that they're even telling people I've had violent tendencies since childhood and this was just waiting to happen. Linda has been milking her injury for all it's worth. She posts daily updates on social media about her difficult recovery and how she's trying to forgive the person who did this. She never mentions me by name, but everyone knows who she's talking about. She's turned every conversation about her broken leg into a pity party about being attacked by her own family. They even threatened to press charges against me. Tom called my dad saying they had spoken to a lawyer and were considering legal action. That's when my dad finally had enough. He contacted the hotel and after some back and forth, they agreed to provide the security footage of Linda's fall. The video clearly shows her walking down the stairs while looking at her phone, tripping, and falling. I wasn't anywhere in the footage. When confronted with the evidence, Tom and Linda backed off from their legal threats but still haven't admitted they were lying. Instead, they're now saying I must have done something to the stairs before Linda walked down them. It's ridiculous, but some people are actually believing these wild accusations. The worst part is how my Aunt Sarah's family has completely turned against us. Sarah has been telling people that she always knew there was something wrong with me but tried to give me chances because we're family. My cousin Ben posted a long rant on social media about how I attacked his grandmother and how he'll never forgive me for hurting his family. He conveniently left out the part about him being in my room with me when the accident happened. Emma, who used to be my favorite cousin, has been sending me horrible messages. She said she always knew I was jealous of their family because they had more money and their grandparents spoiled them. She brought up every little argument we've ever had since childhood and twisted them to make me look bad. The last message she sent said she was glad this happened because now everyone could see my true evil nature. My dad finally decided to take action. He spent days gathering evidence of their harassment, screenshots of their social media posts, recordings of their threatening voicemails, copies of Emma's messages to me, and the hotel security footage. He compiled everything into a folder and sent it to our entire extended family, along with a detailed email explaining what really happened. He also included some old text messages from 8 years ago, when he had confronted Aunt Sarah about her parents' behavior in the car. In those messages, Sarah had actually acknowledged her parents were wrong but said she couldn't stand up to them. It was proof that they had known about the bullying all along but chose to ignore it. The response from the extended family has been mixed. Most of our relatives were shocked by the evidence, especially the security footage that clearly showed Linda falling on her own. But some still think I should have just kept quiet about the past and not confronted them at dinner. They say I provoked this situation by bringing up old grievances. My parents have decided to cut all contact with Tom, Linda, and Aunt Sarah's family. It wasn't an easy decision, especially for my dad since Mark is his only brother, but he said he won't let anyone treat his daughter this way. We've blocked them on all social media and asked our relatives not to pass messages between us. Uncle Mark tried to stay neutral at first, but after seeing all the evidence, he's been fighting with Aunt Sarah about her parents' behavior. He told my dad he's ashamed he didn't stand up to them more over the years. Their marriage is struggling because of this, but honestly, I don't feel guilty about that anymore. The only good thing that came out of this mess is that I've learned who really has my back. Several of my cousins from my dad's side have reached out to support me after seeing the evidence. Even my grandma Rose, who usually stays out of family drama, called Tom and Linda to tell them she was disgusted by their behavior. I'm still dealing with anxiety from all this drama, but at least now I know I'm not crazy. Their lies didn't work this time, and people finally saw them for who they really are. Update 3: Life has been so much more peaceful since we cut contact with Tom, Linda, and Aunt Sarah's family. We had our first drama-free Christmas at home, just our immediate family and Grandma Rose. It was actually enjoyable not having to walk on eggshells or hear constant criticism about everything. Uncle Mark still visits us sometimes, but he comes alone now. He and Aunt Sarah are having serious problems in their marriage because of all this drama. He told my dad that after seeing how her parents behaved and how Sarah enabled them, he started noticing other toxic patterns in their relationship. They're in marriage counseling, but Mark isn't sure if things will work out. Tom and Linda haven't given up trying to reach us, though. They've been sending messages through other relatives, not to apologize but to talk about family unity and how I'm tearing everyone apart. They're especially angry that Uncle Mark still talks to us. Linda even told people that I stole her daughter's husband by turning Mark against them. It's ridiculous how they twist everything to make themselves the victims. Aunt Sarah sent a lengthy email to my dad last week. She wrote about how I destroyed their perfect family and ruined her parents' golden years. She said her mom still has nightmares about falling down the stairs, even though it was her own fault for texting while walking. Dad didn't even bother responding, he just deleted the email and blocked her address. My cousins Ben and Emma are still posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about toxic people and fake family members. Last month, Ben tried to start drama at school by telling people I pushed his grandmother down the stairs. Thankfully, my friends know me better than that, and most people just think he's being ridiculous. The most surprising change has been in my sister Amy. She finally understood why I was so resistant to going on the trip in the first place. She apologized for calling me dramatic and admitted that she had ignored a lot of Tom and Linda's bad behavior over the years because it was easier than standing up to them. We've actually grown closer since all this happened. Some relatives still think we should reconcile for the sake of family peace. They keep saying things like that they're family and you only get one family. But as my dad points out, being family shouldn't give anyone the right to bully and harass you. Sometimes the best thing for family harmony is knowing when to walk away from toxic relatives. My mom is doing much better now too. Without Tom and Linda's constant comments about her weight, she's become more confident. She joined a yoga class and is much happier focusing on her health without their criticism. Last week, we heard through the family grapevine that Tom and Linda are planning some big family reunion for their 50th wedding anniversary. They made sure word got back to us that we're welcome to attend if we apologize. Dad says they'll be waiting a long time for that apology. Uncle Mark told us he's probably skipping the reunion too. He said he can't pretend that everything is fine anymore just to keep the peace. Aunt Sarah is furious about this, blaming me for stealing her husband from their family events. But honestly, I don't care anymore. My mental health has improved so much since we cut contact. Our house feels lighter somehow, and we laugh more. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well and being happy without toxic people in your life.